All right, welcome back to Kingdom Communauté. I'm your host, Nathaniel King. I go by Nate King. You'll see that somewhere, somehow, but you'll see it. This is my very first episode of Kingdom Communauté, the talk show. So, this is a talk show, just to remind you all. If you want to be a part of the audience, the live audience, you must join the Discord. The Discord is $5 US. You can join from anywhere around the world, but it's $5 US to be admitted because that also gives you access to making comments on the videos and other things. Check out my "How This Community Works" video. That'll give you more information, and it'll just continue to evolve from there. But it is a talk show, so if you want to be live, share your opinions, your comments on it, feel free to just join the Discord. We can discuss in there, and we can discuss live. We'll be having guests on. I have a couple of guests lined up, and I'm hoping to have more guests. We talk about anything and everything on this podcast, and today we're going to talk about a topic that I have wanted to talk about for quite some time: the Menendez brothers. Now, this is a very U.S. topic, so there are people around the world that know about this case, the Menendez brothers case, but it's a very U.S. issue here. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because I was what? So all of this went down in 1989, which would have made me 8 years old. And I remember hearing about it when I was younger. And I just remember, all I remembered was that these two brothers had killed their parents for money. So that's what I remember being told. I saw it in the newspapers. I heard about it on TV. We didn't have a TV, so when I did hear about it, it was going to be elsewhere. I heard about it on the news, on the radio. So we did have a radio when I was younger. So yeah, that's what I heard about it. And so I just dismissed it. I'm not someone who enjoys violence, or violent movies or anything to that effect. I'm not. So I just ignored it. I was like, oh, well, rich people and their problems, because I was under the poverty limit. My family was. So that absolutely did not concern me. We're over here struggling to get by, and they're killing their parents for money. Anyways, fast forward to 2024, and Ryan Murphy comes out with a show a show in his series Monsters called the Menendez. I think it's called the Menendez Brothers. I'm not sure. I wasn't interested in it. I didn't watch the Dahmer episode, so I wasn't going to watch this one either. Again, murder, not my thing. Killing, not my thing. So I just ignored it. Largely, but it's just everywhere. And to be honest, I do kind of like Ryan Murphy's stuff. I haven't watched any of his AHS, I think that's what it's called, series, because again, murder, mayhem, no. But I did love his Glee series, and so that's one of the reasons why I really liked his stuff. But it was really just based on that. So, anyways, then I heard. Oh, then I was on YouTube. So this all happened when I was on YouTube, and I was scrolling because I usually play video games to I have ADHD, so playing a certain video game will help me relieve the stress of my ADHD, kind of get my mind to quiet down. But since I wasn't playing games, I was scrolling on my phone through YouTube, and I just kept seeing these shorts of YouTube of the Menendez brothers, this Menendez brothers, that, and I'm just like, oh, for the love of God, sort of thing, just because this new show was out. But then I came across a clip of, like, I think it was Eric testifying on stand from the CourtTV recordings. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I just ignored it and I skipped past it. And then another one came up and then another one came up. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll just listen to it. It was a short, and, and so I listened. So the next one that came up, I listened to it. And that one happened to be when he was testifying about the abuse that he was receiving. It was a short clip, so it wasn't long. It was like a minute and something, about him being abused by his father. And I'm like, what? What the fuck? What? Like, this is not at all something I heard, you know? And I was like, okay. And so I just kept scrolling. And then another one came up and I just remembered him being in a yellow shirt, I think it was, or it was a yellow sweater. He was wearing something yellow and he was testifying again about the abuse. And I'm like, I didn't hear this. And then I scrolled again, and then it was Lyle testifying, and he was testifying. It was a short clip again, but he was testifying about what he had done to Eric. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, and he was crying, right? And I was like, I don't recall hearing any of this, right? So then I was just like, let me just go watch these, because that's the type of person I am. I'm just like, if I get intrigued, man, I have ADHD, and a lot of people know, with people with ADHD, man, when you find a rabbit hole, you'll go down it. So that's what I did. I just delved into it. I just like, but I didn't watch the series. I went to the CourtTV documents, and the CourtTV, sorry, recordings, and I just went all out. And I started with, I think I started with Eric's direct, um, Eric's direct, what do you call that? The direct examination. I started with his, and I was like, like, I was just like, holy fuck. Like, I was like, what did this boy live through, and just going through the whole thing, whatever. And then I went on to, so then I went to Lyle's direct examination, went through his whole thing, which is a number of hours. It's what, 12 plus hours or something like that. Both of them were like 12 plus hours of, footage. And then then their cross examination. And then I went into the witnesses that were called. So this is the first trial, right? Where they were basically tried separately, but, well, they had two separate juries, right? One for each brother, but it was the same trial. And then I, started listening to the witnesses or whatever, and I'm just like, holy shit, fuck, what is going on? Why would they say that these brothers killed their parents for money? And that was what the prosecutors were claiming, was that they did it for money. And I was like, I'm listening to this, and I'm like, this doesn't sound like they did it for money. This sounds like, this was before I understood what their thinking was at the very moment that they actually killed their parents. I was like, this sounds like something that their parents were really building up to, like something tragic was going to happen. I don't know what, but something tragic was going to happen. And then when it finally got to the day, that Sunday, when they did it, I'm just like, oh yeah, that checks. That checks. These kids were freaking scared out of they had the bejesus scared out of them literally their entire life, but especially in this moment where their senses are heightened and stuff like that. Now, we can say that what they were experiencing was probably, their parents had threatened them so much over the years that we can say, oh, because we're not in this situation, we can say, oh, their parents were probably just trying to, which is what abusers do. They don't want to be caught, right? So they're telling these kids who are very impressionable, if you say anything, bad things will happen, you know. And so these kids are believing it. So they're just like, okay, we can't say anything because bad things will happen. Um, Namely, their father would kill them. So whatever. Um, but they were in the state on that Sunday. From what I just was looking at, they were in this state where they're like, "Oh my God, Lyle threatened to expose him, and that means Dad's going to kill us, right?" And then their dad made these types of like threatening remarks, and they're just like, "Oh well, our lives are basically over," sort of thing. And then they bought guns for self-defense and then ended up using them offensively. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, yeah, they were scared. That's, for me, that's legitimate self-defense. Now I know that the prosecution would be like, I mean, sorry, I think their defense eventually turned to be, what is it, imperfect self-defense, like in the case of like a battered woman or whatever. I disagree with that. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I think it was legitimate self-defense, even if they couldn't, because the problem is they couldn't see everything around them. They could only see what was in front of them. They could only see what they were experiencing, what they had been taught from way back when, which would be part of this imperfect self-defense. But right now, it's just like they are pretty damn sure their parents are going to kill them. Like that is what the thing is. And so, in a state of absolute like fear and panic and absolute belief that their parents are going to kill them, they defended themselves basically. And the crazy thing about it is they hated it. Afterwards, they regretted so much the thing that they did. They wished that they had died in the place of their parents. They wished they had never done it. Not because they were in prison, because they're still alive. Not because they're in prison. No. Or not because they're going to prison. Obviously, no one wants to go to prison, but bruh, like, we killed our parents. No one wants to kill anybody. No one who is in their right mind wants to kill anybody. That is just something that you do and you cannot take it back, you know? So that's a problem. So I get it. So, anyways, to the brothers, if you by any chance are listening to this, I am so sorry I ignored your story from way back when. I I just don't have a mind for violence or anything like that. I just don't. So I ignored it, especially here in the media. But this proves now that you just cannot trust the media. Sometimes they might tell you the truth. Sometimes you have to do the research for yourself for the things that you're interested in. And if it wasn't for this just popping up on my YouTube, because of the whole Ryan Murphy show and whatever, I wouldn't have given it the time of day. And I am sorry for that. I just was not. I just had heard the things and I dismissed it. And I'm sorry. But I believe you. I believe I believe you. Okay? I believe you, and I didn't even watch anything else but those court TV the court TV recordings, which was live, right? So it's literally recording you, and people were like, "Oh, the brothers were acting." Okay, because then afterwards, after I watched all of that, then I watched the series, and I was disgusted with it. Like I saw the first episode, I was like, ugh, stop. And so I stopped. And then I talked to a friend and I was talking to him about the case. And then he was like, "Oh, you should watch it," because he watched it. And he was like, "You should watch it." And I was like, "No, no, I hear what they're saying. It's bullshit. I'm not doing it. And he was like, "Oh, come on, Nate." So I let him convince me to watch it. So I did watch it, and I finished watching it. And apart from like episode, I think it was like what, episode 5 or 6 or whatever, where um, what's his name, Coach Cooper, Koch, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, was giving his like monologue or whatever. Apart from that episode, everything else was bullshit, in my opinion. It's just bullshit. And if you want to see what acting looks like, that's where you go. Okay, go to that series. If you want to see what acting looks like, thanks to a YouTuber, she put on. I think her name is Sheba now on YouTube, but she put some articles to kind of, or not, sorry, some content to look at if you wanted real, live or real information about the case. And one of them was the um what was it, the CSI, was it not CSI, what was it, Law and Order or something, one of those shows, the show that Lyle kept watching to remind himself of his brother. um she suggested watching that, so I watched that. You want to see acting? Watch that. That's acting. Okay. So what the brothers were doing on in court, you you can't act that. That's not acting. That's not acting. It's reliving trauma, right? And the problem is, if you are trying to say that these brothers were acting, this means that you are negating every single abused person's story. I read the transcript, some of the transcripts from the second trial with uh, Khan, the prosecutor. I think that's his name, Conn. And he was trying to tell Eric that Eric was trying to manipulate the jury with using tears. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I not allowed to cry in thinking about the abuse that happened to me and the shit that hit the fan afterwards? I'm sorry. Am I supposed to remain stoic? Like, what are you talking about? Okay. Yeah, you can fake cry. Okay. But for the people who don't know the difference between acting and genuine, like, I'm sorry, how does the justice system even fucking work then? Like, if you can't tell the difference between someone who is remorseful, truly remorseful, and someone who is just spinning you a web of lies, you shouldn't fucking be in the courtroom at all. You shouldn't be, because you're inept at your job. I'm just saying it. I'm just saying it. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be there. And people will be like, "Oh, they're just doing their job." Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, so were the Nazi soldiers in during Nazi Germany. They were just doing their job, weren't they? No. There is no I was just doing my job. No. If your job is to illegitimize like the truth, then you need to find another fucking job, because that's not okay. That's not. It's not okay. And learn to stand the fuck up and stand for what's right. That's what you need to do. Anyways, that just got me upset, because one thing I hate is injustice and people hiding behind, oh, it's my job, and hiding behind, no. Okay. That shit, at the end of the day, I believe in God. I'm not a Christian, but I believe in God and I believe in Jesus. Um, and I do know that at the end of the day, at the end of the world, there we're being judged even now. And that flimsy excuse for, oh, I was just doing my job, it's not going to cut it. What's going to matter is what's in your heart, right? And if that's the excuse that you're using to kind of blind yourself to the reality, it's going to disappear, and you will have to pay the consequences for literally refusing justice to people. It's just the way it's going to be. Sorry. Any case. Um So one of the things that one of the reasons why I want to talk about this, and why this, so I have my notes here. So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this case is just because it's a mishandling of justice. Now, I was watching the CourtTV trials, and then I read the some of the transcripts from the second trial. Bruh, bruh, no, no. Judge Weisberg, is that how you pronounce his name? Man, you couldn't find a more biased judge if you absolutely fucking tried. If you put out a call for biased judges, you know how when you I don't know how much that happens now, but when you're interviewing a jury, one of the questions that I know that they used to ask, I don't know if they do it now, is like, are you biased or something like that? Would you have a problem making an unbiased decision, bruh? Mr. Judge? Mr. Judge? Did you not want to ask yourself that question? You were completely biased. Absolutely 100% biased. And you know you were. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. You were biased. You kept systematically shutting down the defense. And I kept holding out hope for you because I was like, maybe he's just trying to be one of those tough love judges. Oh, no. No, no. You, you, not only were you biased against the brothers, you were biased against their defense attorney, Miss Abrahamson. You treated her like a child. Absolutely, absolutely disrespectful. What the fuck are you doing with your life? Like, what are you doing? You should not have been a judge. And this is just this case. Oh, I do know about the other cases that you've done. And bruh, you shouldn't have been trying this case. Obviously, they wanted you to because they knew that you could be biased, and that's what they needed. And there is some talk about how the there was some political, because in the U.S. everything's political, nothing's about justice. It's all about politics, and so there is some talk about that. And I have nothing to prove that it was, that the judge was under any type of political pressure or anything like that. But again, if your claim is I'm just doing my job, find another fucking job. That's what you need to do. Just find another fucking job because you're not doing your job well. That's the problem. You're not doing it well, and you didn't do it well. And the second trial was even more heinous than the first trial. What are you doing? No. You are literally leading the prosecution, or you're leading the jury to find the defendants guilty and telling them what they need to find them guilty for. Like, that's what you're doing. You're not letting them come up with a conclusion themselves. And that conclusion was what your bias showed. And again, I don't know if it was the DA that was telling you to do this because they lost the O.J. Simpson case or whatever the situation is, because that's what the talk is. I don't know what it is. But you're spineless. You have no backbone. And you fucked that shit up. You fucked it up royally. And I would be a juror. Like, if I was still in the US, I'd be a juror. And I would totally, wholeheartedly agree with what you were doing. And I would say something, and you'd probably kick me off the jury because that's absolutely absurd. Absolutely. I cannot believe you all thought that was justice. It wasn't. Ooh, that is why this case is important, because justice slowly but surely is being deleted from the US, as we can tell. Right? Now, the sad thing is, black people have had to endure this for a lot longer than, rich white people. But it's slowly catching up with everybody else. Injustice knows no color or creed. It doesn't care. It's going to reach out to whomever it can. And it just slowly dwindles. It just slowly dwindles. But the funny thing is, injustice turns on itself too. So then you can watch yourselves burn. Anywho, so the first trial, there were two hung juries. So because there were two juries for each. Well, you know what? There was a jury for each brother. One was 9-3, and the other was 6-6, apparently. And a hung jury just means that you can't make a call because the ruling has to be unanimous. So they couldn't decide, basically. So in that case, that was it was either manslaughter, which is a less severe penalty than murder. And they were facing murder, so life without the possibility of parole, or the death penalty. So now we get into the meat of the situation, and I've already talked 25 minutes about just injustice and just the case and how absurd this fucking shit is. But I want to get into the the kind of the meat of the situation. Why were the brothers so reluctant to share the truth? All right. So now, some people like, why didn't you tell, like the prosecutors? I think I know it was, but what's her name, Pamela, and I know Khan, but I'm not sure about Kiriyama. But anyways, oh, I know, I think he did. I think I recall him saying some bullshit like this. Um, why weren't why didn't you tell anybody what was happening? Oh, I'm glad that you lived a life where you didn't have to worry about telling other people about the abuse that was happening to you in your own home, and not even having words to put to it. Because Eric's talking to his cousin like, does this happen to you? Like, we know if someone came up to us and was like, does this happen to you? You'd be like, bro, that is abuse. Get the fuck out of there. What the fuck are you doing? But he's a kid and he doesn't fucking know. And so he's asking a kid, right? Because you're going to ask your peers. And he's like, well, that doesn't happen to me, but I don't know what that is, right? He asked, right? Also, there was, what's her name, Diane, I think it was, who saw the shit going down. Well, I mean, the brother came down, Lyle came down, told her what was going on, and she went to Kitty, told her, and then Kitty called her, I don't know, stupid or berated, or told her, or she just told her she didn't know what she was talking about or something like that. I can't remember. And I remember Diane's testimony saying, "Oh, I berated myself for, I thought it was being stupid and misunderstanding and stuff like that." Why don't people tell other people? They fucking don't listen. Like, especially back in the day, no one listened to kids. No one listened to kids. No one listened to kids. So who the fuck are you going to tell? And when you do tell somebody, are they going to believe you? Now, I got two stories. I'll keep them vague, but I know that the people who might be listening to this will, if you're listening to this, I'm talking about, you'll know who you are. Two people very close in my life abused, both of them abused, separate situations, abused by their fathers. Both of them told adults, both kids and adults, what was happening to them, and they were both dismissed. Both of them. Both of them. One was in France, one was in America, and they were both dismissed. They had told people about the abuse that was happening over the course of their childhood, and no one fucking believed them. And that hurt them. We're adults now, and that still hurts them, that no one fucking believed them. Why didn't they tell anybody? They did. They had scars to prove it, and no one fucking believed them. Why didn't you go to the police? Well, at this point, my dad can find me any fucking where. Okay. I tried to run away. I tried to stand up to him. This man is so fucking powerful. What the fuck are the police going to do? Also, if I go to the police, they're not going to believe me. Although the kids didn't know this. They probably thought this, but they didn't know this. But if they thought this, they were right. The police wouldn't have done anything. They wouldn't have believed them, and they would have brought them right back into the hands of the abusers. and it would have gotten worse. No, there is no why you didn't say anything. There's nothing to say. And guess what? They did say something and you didn't fucking believe them. And now they're on the stand telling you and you still don't fucking believe them. Why don't people say to tell you the truth? Because you don't fucking believe them. That's why. That's why. And they're telling you the truth and you're like, oh well, now it's because they're under penalty, you know, they might get the death sentence or whatever the case is, so they're making up some fabrication. Okay, believe that if you want to. It doesn't even make any fucking sense. When people do shit, they have a reason for it. Okay, you're like, why did you kill your parents? Oh, I don't want to say. I don't want to say. Oh, it wasn't us. Whatever. Blah blah blah. Oh, why did you lie? Because they were fucking scared. Because they didn't want to go to jail. Everyone does that. Everyone does that. I got caught stealing. This goes to the whole thing about Eric stealing as well. He was stealing. They're like, oh, rich spoiled brat. No, no. He's stealing for a reason. Him and Lyle, they're stealing for a reason. You want to sit down and fucking ask them why they were doing that instead of just threatening them? There's a reason why they're doing that. They don't know the reason. They can't think of it clearly. But when they made those decisions, there was a reason. I remember when I started stealing. I only did it a couple of times and then I got caught, thankfully. But there was a reason. I didn't have shit. And my dad was spending money on everything else but me, but his kid. But, well, I'll speak for myself. He was spending on everything but me. And I didn't have shit. I didn't have earphones. I'd ask him for it. He'd say he'd get it. He never did. So I wanted some fucking earphones. Someone stole some earphones. I didn't have money for like candy and shit like that. I'd ask my dad for it. I'd never get it, you know, or very, very rarely get it. You know, like I was not spoiled. I wanted to not be always without, you know? These brothers, I can't tell you why they were stealing, but I can tell you that the shit that was happening to them, yeah, I'm not surprised that they were stealing. That doesn't surprise me at all. And they were kids. They're not fucking adults. They're kids. This means that there is something that they're going through. And you're stupid and blind. You're stupid and blind if you want to ignore that. So, anyways, the prosecutors said that they did it for money, and they killed they killed their parents for money, and they blamed. And one of their biggest things that they tried to blame it on was the spending spree, quote unquote spending spree that these brothers had. And I'm looking at this spending spree that they went on. Bought a car. I think they bought like a condo or something like that, or I don't remember if that was part of the spending spree, and like 2 or 3 Rolex watches or something to that effect. I'm like, that's what you call a spending spree? No. Have you all seen that clip of Michael Jackson going into like a mall and just like, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. Like he was like buying urns and shit and just bought basically the whole store out and went to some other place and bought that. That's a fucking spending spree. That's what you would call a rich person's spending spree. What the fuck were these brothers doing? I would liken that more to something like a what do they call that when you do a shopping? I don't know what you call it. There's a term for it when you're doing like something to kind of relieve your mind. So like I play video games to relieve my mind, and when it's a lot and I can't keep my head, like I mentioned just before, I just play a lot more video games. This is what I do. That's what I would liken that to. They were getting out. They needed to get out of their head. They needed to do something, right? And they had access to a little bit of money, and that was a little bit compared to, you know, who they were and what their family was about. That wasn't a spending spree. it's it's funny that you thought that was, because you're poor, and so you're just thinking, oh, I wouldn't do this. Well, obviously you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't have the money to do it. But if you had the money to do it, you would do something like that.